welcome in to the Halas Huddle podcast. We are on episode 8, the Ocho, and we have a special guest with us tonight. This is my buddy from 10 plus years, Justin Onayemi. He's one of the brightest guys I know, not just in football, but just in everyday life. And welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Wow. I feel special, like you said. That's very fantastic. I've been listening. I've been a loyal listener to the Halas Huddle, and now I'm being invited on. So it's good to be with Rob and Jeremy. You guys have been sounding great together, and I hope to add to that.
And speaking of Jeremy, as always, my co-host, Jeremy Layton, on the other side, all the way from New York. How's it going?
Yep. It's going well. We have some news that we'll probably get to in a second. But yeah, it's going well. I'm fucking tired. I went to a casino in Connecticut yesterday. Made some money betting WNBA, lost some money playing blackjack, made some money on golf, got home at like 11:30. Then I had to work a full day today and then went for a run.
I'm exhausted too. I had my first soccer practice for fall, and we were a kid short, so I had to scrimmage with them for an hour. And that's running around with 10 and 11-year-olds is not.
I'm worried about the 10 or 11-year-olds. My goodness.
Yeah, that's exhausting. I would never be able to do
that. Well, yeah, Jeremy hinted at it. This is kind of like a bittersweet episode, right? Like some changes that might be taking place. Not permanent changes, but I'll let Jeremy explain a little.
Yeah, so basically, I am going to become not the host of the show anymore. Justin's going to take my place. I'm going to have to take a little bit of a step back from the podcast. I'll still hopefully be able to come on as a guest throughout the season, just not in every episode. Nothing serious, just my, for people, I don't know if people who listen to the show know, I'm the gambling editor of the New York Post, and we have a new partnership for the NFL season that is just going to take up too much of my time. And I had to make the business decision to kind of just step away for a little bit. And obviously, would love to still, share my thoughts on the Bears and come back on the show and maybe share some gambling tips when that is possible. But take a look at my schedule. It just wasn't going to work out for me to be on this podcast every couple times a week for a full NFL season. But obviously I'll still be watching the games. Kind of have no choice. But I'll hopefully be able to be on when I can. And obviously I feel like I'm leaving the show in great hands with Rob and Justin here. So hopefully you guys still keep listening and enjoy what we got after. I'm sure you will. I have absolutely no doubt. So yeah, it's pretty much the long and short of it. Not to start the podcast on a bummer note, but we'll still have a lot of Bears to talk about, and I'm hopefully a lot more in the future too. Just for now.
Yeah, you're going to be around. It's not like Jeremy's going anywhere. We're going to get him into some betting segments throughout the season. Have him guest appear and teach us how to win some money.
Absolutely.
Yes, I will, hopefully.
And as I said, I've been a loyal listener, and you guys have been great together. It's been real natural, it sounds like. And, Rob and I, we've been talking Bears and going through all our sorrows of being Bears fans. So we'll carry that on. Although we'll get to it in a minute. I wasn't feeling that way this Saturday.
Well,
all right. Let's get into it.
Let's dive in, right?
So,
preseason week 1, right? Opening preseason, Bears versus Chiefs. The Chiefs, well, first of all, the Bears basically went 3 and out, right? And then the Chiefs marched down the field and scored a touchdown. I mean, that's pretty much, if it had stayed
Football's
that way.
Back.
Yeah.
NFL's back.
The Bears obviously won, but that wouldn't have happened if Mahomes was playing the whole entire game. So
that's the beauty of it being preseason. There was a lot of other things to watch for. We're going to get into some of our winners and losers and all sorts of things. But, in the back of my mind, I was thinking this would have looked different, had we seen the starters of both teams a bit longer. But overall, I just was really excited to just see football again.
Yeah.
Rob, what do you think of Justin Fields' performance specifically? Let's just go right to it because, he's the number one guy here.
I mean, it was good and bad, but not all on him, right? He took 2 sacks and was able to hold on to the football, so that was definitely a positive over last year. But the one pass to Darnell Mooney was like that. That's what had me ecstatic, right? Like that's what had me excited. The one to Tajay Sharp was perfect throw too, but I'm going to give more credit to Sharp for coming up with that catch. I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy?
It's interesting you say that. I think that Tajay Sharp throw was like 100 out of 100, like absolute 5 quarterbacks in the NFL can make a throw like that. He was getting hit. He threw it only in a spot that his receiver could get it. Like, could not have been fit more into a keyhole. And obviously, you need an amazing catch to be made. But I thought that was really the best. I thought that was the best throw of the day. And the Darnell Mooney route, obviously, there was like 2 huge splash plays that the Bears made. The Darnell Mooney was probably like a 20-yard deep ball.
Yeah.
That made me feel. That kind of confirmed a lot of what I was expecting from Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields, who have been throwing together all off season. They've been working a lot at practice. They've been apparently staying behind in practice and throwing together. Like, the chemistry between them is very, very real. And that was just a total chemistry route. Like, he put it, Darnell Mooney knew exactly where to high point the ball. Fields knew exactly where to put it. Again, kind of in a similar spot where only the receiver could make a play on the ball. Decent cover. Like, he had a step on the guy, but it was fine coverage. And like, they're not going to, whip out the entire offense during the preseason. No one expects that, but to see kind of like this felt like maybe a little bit of a bread and butter play. It was, man coverage on the outside. You kind of ran a little pick route. And that seems like just a play you can kind of, great quarterbacks and great receivers and on good offenses have plays they can just kind of reach into and dip into it, and just like it's almost automatic. And that looked like a really well executed play that they practiced a lot and they knew exactly what they wanted to do on the play, and that was really exciting to see. I thought the Sharp throw was otherworldly. I thought the throw to Mooney was great, but those type of there's been a few plays obviously in the regular season and in the preseason that Fields has made that kind of I remember the Titans game last year where he fit that ball in the corner of the end zone. I think it was for Jesper Horsted. Like, he makes throws like that, like 1 in a million throws every once in a while, and it's great. And we obviously want to stack them, get some rhythm on offense and get more of them. But it's great to see those flashes.
I mean, just the fact that we're talking about 2 specific throws that were right on the money, with 2 different receivers is a very positive sign. And whether that's Fields and his accuracy or Getsy and scheming to get people open. It was just refreshing to see that the offense just looked like they knew what they were doing. And that was the starters and when reserves came in. There were none of these. I mean, I know it's simple, it's vanilla in the preseason, but to not see pre-snap penalties, to not see, rushing to the line and calling stupid timeouts, and who knows, that may not continue on as the defenses are getting more complicated, but it was just fresh to see and exciting to see.
Yeah, and I don't want to take any credit away from Justin Fields. I mean, it was a phenomenal throw. First of all, so my recording did not record correctly. Screw you, Xfinity. You're never going to be a sponsor of the show, because I set up my TV to record all Bears games, and for some reason it recorded the NFL Network broadcast, and because I'm a local broadcast, it didn't record the actual game. It cut to Commanders versus Panthers, and I didn't know until today. I went to go rewatch some of the game.
Oh, that's so brutal.
I was pissed. I wanted to watch that play. So did either of you does anyone confirm, did he come down? I know they ran up, by the way, I'll mention this just briefly because I want to talk about it again later, but just getting to the ball and snapping it to not even let a replay happen was phenomenal. I don't think that would have happened under Matt Nagy.
No, he would have
come down with it.
I thought he came down with it. I thought he had both feet in. I thought he secured the ball. It looked like I'm glad they ran up to the line, and that's just something that smart football teams do. And even if it's a little bit close, you don't want to give them the opportunity. And Nagy just would choose that time to go deep into his playbook and call a 15-second motion, receiver runs from one side of the field to the other, then all the way back. That's not going to, hopefully not going to happen anymore.
He'd probably change out 5 different players too, because he loved to just do personnel changes.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, like that was a great sign. That was, another thing that I was like, all right, we've got something here with the coaching staff. And I felt largely good about the team and kind of just their vision right now. And it's really hard to make pronouncements after one preseason game. And I'm not trying to say this like reinvented the wheel, but like I could have felt shitty about the team. I didn't really. I felt kind of the same, maybe a little bit better than I did going into the game, which is honestly a win at this point.
We were talking that we were going to just flat out say who were some of the winners. And I know this is super corny, but I felt as a fan that I felt like I was a winner because of the things we're talking about here. And just the idea that, we're not going to see a guy go to the ground and no one go over there and tap him. I mean, they were just pursuing the ball. They're being coached, and they, are lacking in talent, and everyone out there is pretty much trying to prove that they belong. Next year is going to be tons of cap room. So all these guys are working for future security. And I hope this is what continues into the season, because then I feel like I'll have just that in the back of my mind as I watch. As long as we see development, as long as we see buy-in, like I said, stupid penalties and all those things, if we can just play clean football, and you're a team that bases yourself on going and getting turnovers, which we saw a little bit of on Saturday, the ball can bounce your way a few times, pick up a few W's you probably don't deserve, and entertain us for a year.
Yeah.
So I felt like a winner as long as that continues.
Yeah, I agree with you. What were you guys, because I felt great about Fields immediately after the game. I rewatched the game a couple times. There were like a few things that kind of stood out to me on tape that like things I would like him to clean up. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. Like I like on that sack where Michael Schofield got completely blown up. Like that was like kind of tough. Like it was really bad luck. Like you got to have better pass protection than that. But Fields like wasn't looking in his direction. I feel like he's still kind of not the most aware in the pocket. He's not super trusting of his offensive line. He kind of locks a little bit on receivers, and that's kind of what it felt like in that play. And then there was the one where he took the hit. He bailed from the pocket a little too early. I saw a guy, this QB, I think his name is the QB coach on YouTube. He described it as Fields was processing a little too fast, which I found interesting. Because when you go back and watch the tape, like he was kind of moving off his reads pretty quickly, and I thought, like, when I first watched it, I was like, maybe it's a little slow because he's, bailing from the pocket and not like waiting for stuff to develop and kind of not seeing stuff as it develops and just kind of, panicking and leaving the pocket. It kind of felt like he was just coming off his reads a little bit too quickly, actually, which is interesting. It's good that he's going through his progressions. And he made it to the fourth progression for the fourth read in the play on that screen that got batted down, which is another example of like, maybe wait on your second read or your third read a little bit too longer. But it's good that he's going through, it's good that he's able to see the entire field. It's just like patience might, need to come with like a little bit better, and you need to help him out with pass protection, obviously, and guys getting open. And that's just something I think we should watch, especially if he gets more snaps in the preseason and obviously for the first couple of weeks. Would like to see that improve a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw similar stuff with that. I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you just said. So I think it's hard, though, to trust an offensive line that hasn't proven themselves at this point. And I know you tweeted out about the offensive line. I think it was either during the game or it was the next day. I don't remember, but I remember responding to it. And I do hope that putting Riley Reif in, whether it's at left tackle or right tackle, because from what it sounds like, Braxton Jones had a really rough practice today.
Yeah.
At this point, I would prefer him being at right, and I would hope Braxton Jones does win that left tackle job. He showed enough to me, I felt like, during that game. But it's hard he got sacked like crazy last year, and I know it's new guys, but I feel like that internal clock, and I hope that doesn't affect his career as a whole, right? Like, if they can never find a line for him, you're talking like RG3 type stuff.
I was thinking David Carr.
Yeah.
Took all those hits his rookie year and was never the same. But I agree with you guys. But I also look at it as it's the first preseason game. I don't want him standing in there, getting jacked up and missing real games. But I really trust in the fact that, at least from what we're hearing, Getsy feels he's picking things up really quickly. It's difficult because he's a second-year quarterback, but it's a first year in a new scheme. So I hope those are things that he seems like he's a student of the game, and Getsy seems like he's a teacher of the game. So I'm going to trust that as the reps pick up and the complications of what they're calling picks up, hopefully we see the natural progression that we see in bursts and in flashes, but we just see it on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think I'm not worried. I think it's just something to monitor, and it's like an area that he can improve if there is one. And it would really be great if he can, if he can start, seeing the field a little bit better and just kind of like seeing things as they break open and giving a little more time, trusting in this offensive line a little bit more, which, that will come with reps. Like, he's a second-year quarterback in a first-year offensive coordinator scheme that he's just implementing for the first time with a bunch of guys he didn't play with last year. So you have the preseason to iron this stuff out. That's exactly why he was out there, and that's why, I think it's important to get those reps. I think that's, if we were to, like, push this forward to, like, something to watch for the next preseason game, which I sadly will not be able to attend, or I will not be able to watch, sadly. I'm very upset about. I'll watch the highlights, I guess. But I think that's
Thursday, right?
Yeah, it's Thursday. It's tough turnaround, honestly.
Yeah.
I wonder if he didn't feel
Saturday
that many
Thursday,
snaps.
though. Not Sunday to Thursday, but still kind of stupid to do that.
I think Getsy hinted at that he's going to see some again.
Okay. I mean, I would expect him to at least get a couple series, but yeah. I think if that's one thing I really want to watch from him, and if he can, get a little bit better with his eyes, the spectacular throws that he'll uncork will just, only become more prevalent, and he could turn into a really good quarterback. And that's, like, I saw way more than enough to be encouraged about his second year, because, I mean, like, he only probably, I think, threw 7 passes, something like that.
7. Yeah.
4
for 7.
Right. So one of those 4 completions was the Darnell Mooney catch. One of them was the Tajay Sharp. It's pretty good. There was a Khalil Herbert drop. There's the one where he checked down to him a little. I think that was a little earlier in the game. That looked like it was a little underthrown, but he was getting hit. So a lot of pressure. Braxton Jones got beat in that play. So, it happens.
Yeah, that was when he got stepped on, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember the very next play he took off and got the first down, and I was like, all right, well, his foot's fine.
Yeah.
And that was the only play that I saw Braxton Jones just get beat.
Yeah.
So overall, I was kind of impressed with him there too.
He's got good hands. Like, I was surprised about his hand fighting. Like, he just gets in there. He gets, like, up in there, and I mean, it was some solid blocking from him on the left side.
There was one, I swear, I thought he was holding, but you said that it actually wasn't a hold. So I was like, hey, great play. At first, I was like, no, you're going to cost the team 10 yards, but
yeah, on the Khalil Herbert run. I mean,
his only good run. They talked about it on the broadcast that it was textbook on what he did. So I would be concerned that there could be refs that might throw flags on it, if they don't catch exactly where his hands are and they think he hooked them completely, and grabbed, but there was no grab. So I was going to ask if the textbook was how to get away with holding.
And also, they never call holding in the NFL, so it's like not even
or apparently hits on the quarterback when they're sliding. So.
That was also
it's
ridiculous.
Preseason for the refs too, though. So,
well, I feel like mid-season is preseason for the refs because they're not consistent or good.
So let's kind of shift off of Justin Fields, but before we do, let's go to the next segment here, like winners and losers from the game. So I want to get you guys' winners from the game. Let's start with Jeremy. Before you tell me who else you have as winners, do you put Justin Fields in that category, or does he not make a winner or loser list?
Yeah, he would be on my list. He probably wouldn't be number 1 on my list. But I thought he had a good day. I thought, all things considered, he had a very good day, and made some great throws. If I were to pick a number 1, biggest winner would probably be Jaquan Brisker. I thought he looked spectacular, and again, preseason, like we're like it looked like he was in the first sequence with Mahomes on the field, like he looked like he was out of position a couple times, which is going to happen when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes in your first ever snap of any game in the NFL. So the caveat is obviously that, like, let's see it in a real game. But as he got like a little bit more comfortable with the game, like his instincts and his ball hawking ability were like jumping off the screen. And there was one drive where I think he was at the ball, made the tackle, or almost picked off whoever was throwing the ball on every play. And I think it was like a 3-and-out. And I mean, that's kind of what I saw in his tape from Penn State. Like he's just a really, really good player. And it looks like he's going to be able to be an impact player basically from day one, which, how could you ask for more out of a second-round pick?
That you both didn't want them to take, right?
That's true.
I mean, you know what? And like, I'm kind of kidding. So don't roast me for this. But like, what if they just took Brisker at 39 and George Pickens at 48?
I mean, I see that.
Yeah.
Pickens is looking good too.
I mean, Kyler
it's a
Gordon
preseason. We can't. Yeah, and I like Gordon too. I do like Gordon a lot. So
if he can get on the field,
he was back in practice today.
Yeah,
a little bit.
That's good.
I got a winner in Tajay Sharp. I mean, obviously, there was some disappointment. We just mentioned how they didn't draft a receiver in that second round, and we didn't get to see what Velus Jones is going to look like in this offense. But that wide receiver room has a lot of question marks, a lot of maybes, a lot of, let's see if we catch lightning in a bottle type of guys. And for him to just get the opportunity, and we talked about how him and Fields on that one connection looked great. But then he also had a good connection with Simeon as well. So I would put him there because I think he cemented a role.
I mean, it helps that N'Keal Harry's not coming back until at least week 5, right? And we don't know about Byron Pringle. I mean, where he's kind of week to week, and they don't even know if he's going to be ready for week 1. So those two things right there could definitely lock him in.
Well, I'd like to think it's his play too. So hopefully it's both.
I mean, yeah, and the guy's had been in the league for a few years. He's, I think he has like 1,400 yards in his career. So I think you will see some 3 receiver sets with Darnell Mooney, Tajay Sharp, and Velus Jones Jr. Hopefully, if he's healthy. Apparently, he's back to practice today too. So hopefully, he'll be able to get some action this week. But yeah, I like Sharp too. Should we go to losers or should we have more winners?
So there's a guy I have to name.
A winner.
I have to name, and it's also a receiver, but it's Dante Pettis, and it's not even for his catching. The guy is blocking, like on the Treston Ebner run. He's the reason why he gained an extra 10 yards. Like downfield block, and I also have to put this on the coaching staff. So like they're also a winner too, because the discipline that they have. You didn't see this from the wide receivers last year, like at all. I'm not going to name names on who I really don't ever
Malinch Robinson.
That's exactly who I was thinking. You didn't need to say it, Rob.
But yeah, I mean, his block there. He also had a nice 25-yard catch.
4th down, I believe.
It might have been. I don't remember the down and distance, but I do think I wrote an article this week, and I had both Tajay Sharp and Dante Pettis as guys who've probably secured roles due to their play, coupled with the injuries that have taken place. So
yeah,
and Dad Newsome muffing a punt.
Oh yeah, because he also came in after Newsome muffed the punt as the punt returner.
Yeah,
so
wasn't a great day for Newsome.
Yeah, so there you go. There's our segment into losers. Why don't you? Newsome could be your guy. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not the guy I'll go with right away. All right, a loser. I'm going to say the entire right side of the offensive line.
That was your tweet, by the way.
Yes, it wasn't very good. Schofield got absolutely destroyed by Chris Jones, which happens. It's Chris Jones. He's really good. That was probably his one pass rush of the day, and he got to just kind of smoke a guy and go to the locker room feeling pretty good about himself. But he didn't look great. He didn't look good at all. Larry Borum didn't look very good. They were getting pressure on him. I'm worried about the right side of the line because maybe Riley Reif takes that right tackle position. But like Schofield will probably be fine. Like he's probably not going to be like, he'll probably be like a 64 PFF guy this year. He'll probably be like just average enough to like just above average enough to like not destroy you as a line. But the whole line basically kind of seems like it's just kind of that. And what was it going to look like before you added Riley Reif and Michael Schofield? Honestly, like it was going to be a disaster. Right now, we're waiting for Lucas Patrick to come back from injury. Looks like Sam Mustipher is going to be getting a lot of the snaps there, and you know what to expect from him. He's just not good. Cody Whitehair didn't look particularly great either. He held up a little bit better than Schofield, and Braxton Jones, looked fine, which is it's not great when your best offensive lineman is a 5th-round rookie. It's just not what you want.
Yeah, I don't know. My only hope with Schofield is that it was like he's not completely like football ready since he didn't sign until super late.
Totally possible.
But he's also 32 and a veteran, and he's done this for how many years? He probably should have been football ready at this point, just on his own. But that's my hope. I got to hope for that. I'll throw Daz Newsome under the bus then. He'll be my loser because that guy, I had such high hopes for him. I don't know why. I mean, he was a 6th-round rookie. Nothing special in college. It's just I thought he had a chance to at least be, a back-end roster guy, help on punt returns, help on kick returns if needed. He had a horrible. He had like the butterfly. He looked so nervous out there after that muff punt. I think that just messed up his head. He caught that touchdown, which by the way was
he caught it twice.
I was gonna say he bobbled it, right? And it was schemed open. It's not like he really did much on that play other than ran the correct route. So I guess he gets some credit.
Better than Anthony Miller.
True.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of the easy one to throw under the bus, even though he got that touchdown. But he's definitely probably my biggest loser.
Well, this guy wasn't even on the field, but I'm putting him in my loser category. And you got to hear me out on this. But David Montgomery, in terms of his long-term realistic chance of staying on this team, and I know just the running back position is that way. He's one of my favorite players, so it's going to be a sad thing to see him leave. But both Khalil Herbert and Ebner just in their opportunities look like they can do some things in this offense. You won't have to pay them. I mean, so I just kind of felt bad at not seeing Montgomery out there. I still think he's going to have a great season, and I'm looking forward to that. But just in terms of him as a long time fixture on this team, I think we're seeing that come to an end this year, most likely.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times already, Jeremy. I got destroyed on Twitter talking about that this week.
It's a little early to bring it up, but it hit me in the game watching it today, this weekend.
Yeah. So I've said, a few times that I think that Khalil Herbert's a better zone runner, which Montgomery's a better player. I don't think anyone's really doubting that. And he has an elusiveness and a tackle breaking ability and just kind of like a motor that Herbert doesn't have. And I feel like he'd be a great guy for a playoff team to just salt games away, give you tough yards in the fourth quarter and just keep moving the chains. But how much are you going to pay a guy like that when you have options on the team? And it looked like Ebner was going to be more of a pass catcher. But Herbert's got some skills, and I mean they found something in the late rounds of the draft last year. So I've been a big fan of Khalil Herbert basically since he took over for Montgomery when he got injured. But yeah, I think I have to agree with you. I don't really think anyone expects Montgomery to get paid next year unless it's something really team friendly, and if he's willing to take that deal, sure. But he'll probably get paid by somebody. I don't know. He's good enough to warrant interest on the free agent market for sure.
The other interesting thing is what's the franchise tag? I haven't looked into that for running backs next year. I would not give him anything more than 10 to 12 million in AAV.
Oh, I think the franchise tag is less than that. I can't imagine it's more than that for the running back position. Yeah, and like
run him into the ground.
Which, like, yeah, it's very, kind of crazy that the NFL has kind of set this franchise tag rule. It makes it really easy to manipulate running backs, particularly, and receivers, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with Montgomery, and it's going to be kind of tough to see him leave, but he's going to make another team happy. I really I kind of similar to you. Justin, he's one of my favorite players in the team, so it would suck to see him go.
Yeah, I was one of the few people that was like all over the Bears drafting him and moving up for him when he got drafted. Like anyone can check my timeline. I was all over David Montgomery being the guy, his balance, the way that he runs. We've talked about it. I've told you, like, to me, he seems like a bigger Maurice Jones-Drew, just the way he just doesn't go down.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, I have to throw one more loser in there, but I'm going to give Justin credit for it because he talked about it pre-game or pre-show. Soldier Field itself.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was Arlington Heights saying, "Oh, come on over."
Like, was Lori Lightfoot like basically saying, "All right, this is my way to sabotage the Bears. Like, we're just going to injure the whole team." Like, I
can't imagine that would. Yeah, it was bad.
So the league said they weren't too happy with the conditions. But would the league consider moving them?
But they also signed off on it.
Like, who even isn't responsible for that? I don't even know. Like,
Chicago Park District, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, but the Bears do have some like oversight. So,
yeah,
but apparently they had a concert.
I was just about to.
They had an Elton John concert.
Yes,
and this is also another thing about the stadium is not owned by the team; it's owned by the city. They're leasing it. So, like, it's when you have a shitty landlord. Like, you're not going to fucking take care. There's going to be a broken window, and what are you going to do? You're just not going to live there. You have to live there.
Some slumlords.
Yeah, man.
But at the same time, like, even in Arlington Heights, they're going to have concerts. But like, there's ways to go about it to make it better. And what's crazy is Justin Fields said that this field was better for the game than it was on Family Fest. So I don't know. They're all losers because of that. So Justin mentioned it earlier, and I wanted to make sure we brought it up because even the head of the NFLPA, I think it was the head of the NFLPA, commented about it on Twitter and was like saying, "What is this?
Yeah,
why is this so bad?"
It was JC Treader, right?
Yes.
Guess he's not signing with the Bears.
No, I guess not. Is he going to sign anywhere at this point? I mean,
someone's going to get desperate and throw him a bag, and he'll take it.
I mean, how could it not be Tampa at this point? I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Seems likely.
All right, well, I think that was pretty much all I had for the preseason game recap. If anybody had anything else to throw in before our ad break, just let me know.
Nope.
Think we're good.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back. Unfortunately, Jeremy has to go, so we're going to let him do a final August 15th because he's coming back in a couple weeks anyway. Sign off.
Yeah, man. So the thing that I have to, do instead of this podcast is my actual job. So I would really love it if you guys went and checked out NewYorkPost.com/post-action-betting. There's dashes between all of those. Post-action-betting. That's our betting site. Right now, we're going through a series where we have gambling previews for all 32 NFL teams. And I think we're on the. I'm owed. I have to write the Colts one later tonight, which is one of the reasons I have to hop off. But we just had Arizona Cardinals. We had the Browns recently. We had we're going in reverse Super Bowl odds. So we started with the Texans and we'll end with the Bills. I think they're the favorites.
Wait. Where are the Bears?
They were pretty early, and I wrote that story too. And you guys should go check it out. I said some nice things about Khalil Herbert in that story that I still actually stand by in this weird alternate universe that I created in the story. You guys can go read it. I won't reveal anything else. But yeah, check us out. Check me out on Twitter. Jeremy Layton with a 0 instead of an O at the end of my last name. And yeah, I'll hopefully be back and giving you guys some gambling tips, even though my baseball bets are not looking fantastic right now. I'm keeping an eye on it. Oh well.
DM me that link and I'll shoot it out on the BGO site too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will.
All right.
For sure.
All right. Sounds good, Jeremy. Good luck with that. And definitely you'll be back several times more.
I'll be back. You're not done with me. You'll be sick of me by the end of the season.
Not if you're winning us money.
Yeah, it's actually fair. All right, fair. Down.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. I hope you enjoyed the ad. Hopefully click on it, and I don't know what it was, to be honest, at this point, but we'll insert it later, and hopefully it was something that caught your attention. Unfortunately, we had to let Jeremy go, but Justin and I are still here to finish off the podcast, and we are going to do our last segment here of the show. This was actually Justin's idea.
Hopefully it doesn't suck.
I think it'll be good. I know I'm, I think we have a very wide range of ages on people who like to listen to this type of show, with our millions of subscribers out there, obviously. And but Justin and I know are in this category, and I feel like it's one of the best shows out there. And if you're not watching it, I do suggest you go and watch it. It's done. You could just binge watch it. But the show is This Is Us, and one of the best characters on that show, in fact, the best couples, they're probably the power couple in that show, to be honest, is Randall and Beth. And they like to play a game, and that game is called Worst Case Scenario. So we're going to do our own take on that. We're going to do worst case scenario and best case scenario. And we're going to just go through a few players. We're going to throw out players, talk about, where they're at in their situations real quick. And then each of us are going to give our worst case scenario for that player. And it could be short term, it could be long term. You just got to specify where you're at with it.
We're not talking about season ending injuries. That's obviously not what we'd want for anyone.
Right. I mean, we talked about Tajay Sharp and Dante Pettis earlier, and clearly those are two guys that consistently have season-ending injuries. So, like, those types of things we're trying to keep off the table. But it can get dark. If you've ever watched that show, This Is Us, their scenarios can get pretty dark.
Well, and I was going to jump in and say I wouldn't recommend binge watching that show. It's kind of an emotional roller coaster of sorts, but
it is. But
great show nonetheless.
It's fantastic.
Hopefully this will be a great segment.
Yeah, fantastic writing too. If you're just like a fan of TV, like television writing, it's unbelievable. But okay, we've talked a lot about him already, so I'm going to throw it to Justin, and we're going to talk about another Justin.
That's right.
The one that we already talked about earlier, Justin Fields. So give me your worst case scenario for Justin Fields, either in 2022 or career. You choose.
Well, I'm going to look at it just from this season's perspective. For me, the worst case scenario for Justin Fields is you just don't see things clicking in. We kind of talked about it earlier, whether you're saying processing things too quickly or too slowly, getting happy feet. Last year he was doing some jump passing, and those almost always came off ugly. But I'm willing to put that on the previous coaching staff. But if you start to see that kind of stuff this year, then that's really going to be cause for concern. I would also throw in there the turnovers. Like you said earlier, when he got sacked, he actually protected the ball. And that was a huge positive, if you can take a positive from a sack, compared to last season, where I believe he had double-digit fumbles,
12,
and threw more picks than touchdowns. So if we're seeing ugly numbers and it looking ugly, that would be worst-case scenario for Justin Fields. Now, that's not actually how I see things going. So I think let's talk about best case scenario. It probably won't happen either. It'll be somewhere in between. But I think it's far more likely that week to week we see him developing that rapport with various receivers. I think we see play calling and even just the tempo that they run kind of fitting his style. So for me, best case scenario, we're looking at 25 touchdowns. That might not even be that high for best case scenario, but really, like I said, the turnovers way down. So if he throws 25 touchdowns and 10 picks with few fumbles, if any, that's a good season. And I'd like to see him running the ball too. In a preseason game, I don't want to see him taking hits like he did. But if he's a threat with his feet and making good reads and the offense is clicking, to me, that's what I'm looking for this season. What about you, Rob?
I'm going to take the other approach then. I'm going to look at it as a career thing here. And I'm going to I'm going to go really dark here, and people are not going to be happy.
This is us style. In
This
the
is
true,
us style.
the true essence of This Is Us. All right, I got to brace myself here.
All right, so worst case scenario, Justin Fields looked bad this year, just similar to how he did last year. He had some flashes here and there, but he looked bad to the point where Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus basically start to give up on him. 2023, they again don't give him enough weapons to develop. And 2024 comes and he is no longer on the team. He goes to the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is gone.
This is where it gets dark.
Aaron Rodgers is gone. And Justin Fields becomes the third consecutive top 10 consistently MVP running quarterback for the Green Bay Packers as the Chicago Bears continue to live in purgatory.
So that is how they do it in This Is Us. Now you see the good writing that he's talking about, those dramatic shifts that you didn't see coming. That's the Bear fan nightmare. So again, as with my season outlook, I think we're not going to see the worst case. So hopefully we don't see your worst case career outlook. What about the best case scenario in his career?
I'll preface with, or I recap with, I don't think that is going to happen, but I had to throw it out there because I thought it was fitting. So the best case scenario for Justin Fields is he kind of takes that Josh Allen trajectory where, year 2, he sees a little bit of a jump in his production. It's still not great, but there's enough there where you're like, okay, the mechanics are getting better. The footwork is getting better. We're going to go out and give him more weapons, a Stephon Diggs type situation. Now, I do think the Bears are better off with Darnell Mooney than the Bills were at that time before they got Stephon Diggs, but they're going to get somebody, whether it's through free agency, which is not looking too great because so many wide receivers signed this year, but maybe they get a guy in the draft into the top, within the first round. And between Mooney, Velus Jones, whatever wide receiver they bring in, Justin Fields' 2023 season takes off. And instead of constantly being concerned about a quarterback in Chicago, we finally see a guy who is just going to light the franchise records on fire. He's going to be talked about. He's going to bring the Chicago Bears back into the national media spotlight. That's exactly the best case scenario. And we're going to throw in a Super Bowl at least. I'm not going to get greedy. I'm just going to say at least one.
One is enough at this point. But,
yes.
I mean, basically what you're describing, which, a handful of fan bases see, is you have that quarterback where you're always in the conversation.
Yeah.
And we've never had that. So, we thought we were getting in with Cutler, and it really wasn't that. So that would be great, especially when I compare it to your worst case, which is literally all of our nightmares.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're kind of in a nightmare right now on this next player. So this next player is going through some growing pains is basically what I'm gonna say here. The player is Tevin Jenkins. I don't even know how else to slide myself into this conversation, but the player is Tevin Jenkins. And I'm sure all of you guys have heard all of the stuff that's going on. Even today, there was new reports out that the team is practicing him at right guard. It's such a weird storyline because you have a guy who was drafted by the previous regime, projected as a late first round, early second round pick. They got him in the early-ish rounds of the second round, but had to trade up for him. And it's had a back injury, missed more than half the season. You're like, all right, he's going to come back. He's going to be strong. Now he's not having a great relationship with the coaching staff. I know Nicholas Moriano was saying the other day after the game, he talked to him one-on-one, and he had made a comment of, well, I have to, I'm just trying to make sure that I feel comfortable with my back. So like, is his back still a problem? Like, is this another Chris Williams situation? I don't know. But I'm going to throw it to you. You know all the details of what's been done and out there. You've seen him play the little bit that we've seen him play. What's your worst case scenario for Tevin Jenkins?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with Fields, I was saying how I don't think the worst case is very likely. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen enough from Jenkins. And you talking about him bringing up his back, that makes me wonder if there's some stuff going on in his head in terms of commitment. And that's not a knock. I mean, we see some players retiring, 1 or 2 years in. And if I read that headline next season or even this season, it wouldn't even totally shock me about Tevin Jenkins. You throw in the fact that he doesn't seem to be getting a vote of confidence from the new regime. They owe him absolutely nothing in terms of loyalty. It seems like when he was drafted, especially when you said we traded up, that a lot of other teams weren't really seeing him the way the Bears were seeing him. And so for me, whether you look at it season or career, I think if he doesn't really show something and get on the field and contribute in a way where you actually notice him, that this is just it for him. And he might have another round in him with another team that goes ahead and says, let's kick the tires on this guy. But that comes back to my question of, is this what he wants to do? Is this what he's committed to do? So that's the worst case scenario. But I don't think from the new regime standpoint, they'd feel too sour about it. They didn't draft him. They haven't committed a whole lot to the future in him, which is sad to say with a second-round pick. But unfortunately, I could see it going that way for Tevin Jenkins. So I guess best case scenario isn't going to be all that glowing. It's just that he has a regular spot on the team in this season. And that could be through injury. It could be through him showing something in these next 2 weeks leading up to the season. But I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't even a contributor on this team. And so for him, I think best case scenario is just a part of this team and looking like he belongs, which right now, I don't think that's how he's coming off.
Yeah, it's tough for me. I know Jeremy and I had talked about it before. Like I've always been very high on him. I was high on him coming into the draft. Obviously, I wasn't privy to all the back injury situations that the teams had information on, but it's tough because when you attach yourself to a player and then you just see the downward spiral like so fast. It's almost worse than like when you get those training camp like heroes, right? Like the Dane Sanzenbachers and the God, I'm blanking on some of the other guys that we've seen over the years, but like people that just like, oh man, this guy's got to make the team. And
Null.
Oh yeah, Ryan Null. Yeah.
I was just thinking of what other white guys does the city just get behind for no apparent reason.
But it's it's worse than that because that like those guys, if they make the team, like Ryan Null making the team, like that's fantastic for him. But like
to see it going in reverse is kind of
exactly
demoralizing.
Yeah. So my worst case scenario for him is that, and again, I'm gonna try to keep going with this. This is us. Like
style,
style.
Really go into the story,
right? So Tevin Jenkins, like we've heard about this immaturity issues, right? So worst case scenario is that Tevin Jenkins and Chris Morgan get into a physical fight during one of the training camp practices, and Tevin Jenkins throws a chair.
Oh boy, this
Chris
is escalating
Morgan.
quickly.
And so then Tevin Jenkins is quickly released from the team, and no one else signs him because they all know that this guy is a head case and not worth their time. So yeah, that's my worst case scenario for Tevin Jenkins. I'm gonna cheat here for my best case scenario. So I'm gonna go a Tevin Jenkins best case scenario, and I'm gonna go a Chicago Bears best case scenario because there's kind of a two-way avenue here. The Bears kind of benefit from both, but Tevin Jenkins works his way up becomes either the starting right guard or the starting right tackle. He's a physical force. He's got to get out of his own head, get out of his own way, and just go do it. I do think, like you said, I think it's more of a mental issue at this point. Kind of reminds me of Mitchell Trubisky a little bit. Once you lack that confidence, it's hard to just get back and trust yourself. And I think that that would be his best case scenario regarding remaining with the Chicago Bears. The other best case scenario is that the Chicago Bears get a legitimate trade offer from a team and they move him for, let's say, a 5th round pick. It might not even be that high, maybe a 6th round pick. And that 6th round pick turns into, another Darnell Mooney type player. So that,
when you said 5th round pick, I was looking around and seeing what they got with their 5th rounders this year. And, those are guys that could contribute.
Braxton Jones, right? They got an offensive lineman right there.
Dominique Robinson.
We
should have definitely mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, he was definitely a winner. Him and Treston Ebner were like my other 2 guys.
Yeah, he looked like a guy who played receiver 2 years ago.
So fast.
Just so quick. I know that sack was a blown blocking assignment, but just the way he changed direction so quickly and got away with a face mask.
He
so
did.
Another time the refs kind of took the week off in preseason week 1, but I digress. So, all right, I see where you're going with this worst case. You really want to get into the story.
I do.
I will try, but you're going to have to lead on this one.
All right.
Because you could really go into a story with this next person. A lot of drama, off the field drama, but unfortunately, it's to one of the best players on the field.
We thought that the Tevin Jenkins drama was bad, but this drama with Roquan Smith is becoming a headache, and I honestly didn't think it was going to get this far. I do think he's struggling not having an actual legitimate agent to help guide him through this process, whether it's, I don't know if he's just trying to save the extra 5% or 10%, whatever the agents are getting nowadays, but it just doesn't seem like it's in his best interest to not have somebody there advocating for him. Came out today that the NFL actually made a statement and sent out a memo out to all 31 other teams that, hey, there's reports that Roquan Smith is using somebody who's not an NFL NFLPA approved agent to communicate with teams. And if you communicate with him in any way about trade talks, that will be considered tampering, which obviously isn't good for anybody, right? So it's like a whole situation. This was also the first day that he was reported not to be at Halas Hall for practice. Now, I did see reports that he could have been there, but just not with the practice, but no one actually saw him. So it's becoming a big problem, especially when I'm here advocating that I stand by the fact that I think the Chicago Bears could be a top 10 defense. If Roquan Smith isn't on this team, they're not going to be a top 10 defense. I'm sorry, but Nicholas Morrow and Matt Adams and
Sanborn,
even Jack Sanborn, I'm sorry, but those 3 are not going to be able to.
What about Ryan Nall?
Hold down the fort. So, all right. So I'm gonna try to spin the storyline here from. I don't know how much worse we can get.
The truth here.
That's the problem.
The truth here might be the worst case scenario. Not even needing to put your own dramatic flair on it.
All right. Worst case scenario is the Chicago Bears are unable to trade Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith holds out the 2022 season, decides he just isn't going to get paid, and nobody benefits. It's just a complete cluster F of nonsense, and I just, no one wins. That would be my worst case scenario there. Best case scenario is Ryan Poles and
his fake agent.
Ryan Poles. No. Ryan Poles and Roquan Smith sit down and read my Bear Goggles On article that I wrote, basically laying out the best contract that would win for both sides. And it's literally, you put him right in between Fred Warner and Darius Leonard, and you give him, you take out the de-escalators and you put escalators into the contract that gives him the ability to actually leapfrog Darius Leonard with his salary by about $10 million, $2 million extra a year over a 5-year deal. It's not much. You spread that out over 5 years, it's nothing. And he could be at like 100, and I think it comes out to like 106 million is what I came out to. But yeah, that would be best case scenario. And then we go back to playing football and we move on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have all the numbers or doing all the fancy math that you're doing, Rob, but best case scenario, I know I'm going in reverse order here, but best case scenario, Bears got tons of money for next year and looking forward. You sign him, he's a long-term fixture in a good defense with a defensive-minded coach who hopefully is sticking around because the team is having success. And you build around him, and you build around, obviously Justin Field. We talked about if his best case scenario is happening, and we're also looking at a best case scenario where they're signing Roquan Smith to a long-term deal, you might have something going here. So clearly that's the best case scenario. And I said I was going to really bring it on this one, but honestly, the truth is already pretty dramatic. So for me, the worst case scenario is similar to what you were saying. They can't come to any kind of agreement. Maybe they get hit with tampering and lose a pick or something. But really, it shows like a dysfunctional organization that other people aren't going to want to come to. Because if you lose Roquan, that's bad enough. But if losing Roquan also leads to other people not wanting to come play here and things like that, although I know money does talk, so you'll find somebody. But I just don't want a new regime to have a stain on them over something like this. And if it really does go that worst case scenario, unfortunately, I would say I got to put a lot of that on Roquan in not having somebody representing him and, other things that he's done over the time where it hasn't always looked like he's had the team in mind. So it's sad to say because there was nothing funny about what we just laid out there,
No.
and it could very well happen. So hopefully, Ryan Poles did kind of come out and say that they would like to keep him.
Yeah.
But then you see these other things happening, and maybe they see it as a risk. So yeah, that's one we're really going to have to monitor. It's a key player, obviously.
I mean, he definitely has some, we talk about immaturity with Tevin Jenkins, but he definitely has some immaturity on his part too. I mean, he was also the same guy who was out partying with porn stars on boats during the middle of the height of COVID while they were trying to figure out how their season was going to go down. So clearly he's got some growing up to do.
Yeah. A while back, I think I heard that he represented himself, and I took a positive spin on that. I was like, oh, that's really awesome. And, but not if it's going to lead to not being able to sign a deal,
Well, he had an agent when he first was a rookie, and then he had that like holdout,
right?
And I honestly thought he got rid of the agent because he didn't want to hold out. And now obviously that must not be the case. Maybe he wanted to hold out longer. I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to put it all on Roquan because I also just feel like we talk about how this is a business and you got to understand, but the NFL does so many things that just aren't in the benefit of the players. And so players do have to play these games and demand trades. And I mean, DK Metcalf, you had one foot out the door and now he's got a deal, so the first day when this came out, I definitely thought it was kind of the only chip he could play. And I thought whether it's days later, weeks later, a deal would get done. But when you start to hear this other stuff with tampering and somebody really pursuing those trade options, that kind of, makes you feel like maybe this won't go a way where they come to mutual terms.
Yeah, it's not looking good, but let's get to a brighter point because we mentioned his name a little bit earlier. Jaquan Brisker. And I don't know. It's hard for me to not be excited about this player, even though it's only been training camp and it's only been one preseason game. But, Jeremy alluded to it earlier. Like he did kind of like start off a little slow in that game. But you're also talking about Patrick Mahomes. You're talking about a defense that was missing some key guys. And, it's also just like the difference of practicing against the same guys that you've been practicing against for the last few months and actually going into a game type situation and playing against another team, it's a different atmosphere that you just can't like make happen inside, the outer walls of Halas Hall. But once he settled in, I mean, I you called us out on it.
I
like
definitely did. I'm gonna consistently,
I-
hopefully, be able to consistently call you out on this.
I mean, if George Pickens ends up being great too, like it's kind of a wash. But
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Jaquan Brisker looked amazing. He was all over. There was one series that he literally was the series for the Chicago Bears. Like he was involved with all three plays, almost came away with the interception that also led to a fourth down and a punt. So like it was just unbelievable what he was doing out there. I do think he's gonna definitely make this defense better. I'm hoping that once Kyler Gordon gets out there, like we see even more improvement. But so worst case scenario, and this one's going to be hard for me to spin because
I got one.
Okay, I'm excited to hear yours. I'm gonna do my best here. Worst case scenario is that Jaquan Brisker and Eddie Jackson have such a falling out outside of football that the two cannot play well enough together on the field in 2022. It stunts his growth going into 2023. And we do not see Brisker become the player we think he can become. That's my worst case scenario. Not as good as my other
Let me
ones.
go with my worst case. It's actually, this is where I'm going to put the dramatic flair in here. So, worst case scenario for Brisker, first 6-7 games of the season, he has 5 interceptions. He's all over the field, forcing fumbles.
Are you sure this is worst
This
case?
is the worst case scenario.
Okay.
See, there's something coming here. And unfortunately, you saw him flying around, hitting guys hard. Hitting them how, and I'm getting up there now, but how you used to hit guys back in the 80s and 90s and bear football, right?
Mike Brown and
but he starts
Bob
getting
Sanders.
flagged for it. And he just is a guy not playing in the right era, and becomes known as a headhunter or a dirty player. And, every time he makes a good hit, you're wondering if he's going to get the penalty called on him and fined and things like that. And you just never get to see him develop into what we think he could be. So that's my way of twisting it, which, again, it starts off with him on the Rookie of the Year on the defensive side of the ball. So
that honestly reminds me a little bit of Bob Sanders, actually. I mean, granted, he was more of an injury issue too, but like he was constantly like that was a guy, Mike Brown too. And that's what does worry me. And I know we don't want to talk about injuries for the worst case scenario, but like those are the type of guys that constantly are just getting hurt because they're just hitting so hard.
It's funny you mentioned Mike Brown. I just want to ask you something real quick here. I don't remember if it was 2002, maybe 2003. It was the year they went 13-3, or was it 12-4? They had a really good season. They won 2 games back-to-back weeks in overtime on interceptions by Mike Brown.
Yeah, I was at the Cleveland Browns game.
Yeah, the Browns was the second one, or
it was the second,
and
one.
the 49ers, I want to say, but I could be wrong about that.
I was going to say it might be the 49ers. For some reason, I was thinking it was the Vikings, but I don't think it was.
I don't think it was a division game.
Yeah.
But that team, they had Urlacher, they had Brown, they had a lot more proven talent than what this team has. But my point is, the defense on Saturday looked like they were flying around and going to create turnovers and things like that. And that's why I just think maybe the ball is going to bounce our way a few times. And it's not going to lead to 13-4 or anything like that, but it could just lead to some excitement. And Brisker, really, seeing him flying around is what brought that thought to my mind. So,
yeah, so best case scenario is that Brisker wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think there's definitely a possibility of that happening. I don't know, Aiden Hutchinson already looks like a beast, so that might be – I'm so mad about the Jaguars, man. They let Hutchinson get to the NFC North, and honestly, I felt like he was the best player in this draft. So now the Bears get to deal with him for the next 8 to 12 years, however long he's in the league. But yeah, so Brisker becomes the guy, like defensive rookie of the year. He makes us not care about the fact that Eddie Jackson isn't the Eddie Jackson of 2018 and 2019, and this defense takes on a new face. Even if the Roquan situation goes bad, like maybe Brisker becomes the face of the defense. Off the ball linebackers are not as coveted. They're kind of like, unfortunately, the running backs of defenses. So that's why
right.
they're not getting paid as much. That's best case scenario. I don't really know how else.
All right, I'll spin mine a little bit, but really just to take another jab at you over not wanting them to draft him. But best case scenario, and I'm going to throw another player in here, and we didn't get to see him on Saturday. But the best case scenario is that him and Kyler, I'm drawing a blank actually. Gordon, sorry. Yep. Him and Kyler Gordon both live up to what we think they can be and really solidify the secondary, which has been a weakness over the past few seasons. And, I didn't want to put in Roquan leaving, but like you said, that's a replaceable position. And you see a team kind of have that security back there, because that's what my point was when they drafted who they drafted. I felt like they went with who they thought were the best players available on a team that had so many needs. And I understand that getting a receiver directly would influence Justin Fields, but I feel like having strong, solid defenders that are going to, like you said, he took over a drive and it was a 3-and-out, giving Fields the ball in good field position. He picks that ball. That's now a short field for Fields to work with. So to me, just getting good players was how you're going to help Justin Fields. But that was just to take my stab at you. I wasn't around. If I was co-hosting then, we would have been able to hash that out a little more. But
I mean, even if George Pickens becomes the next Randy Moss.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I'm just
Have we seen that yet?
No, but I'm just saying, best case scenario.
Okay, give him his best case.
All right, let's say he becomes
Trubisky throws
Randy
left.
Moss. He did throw left for a touchdown.
He still didn't look like he wanted to, though.
And what if Brisker also is on, like, let's say they're both on Hall of Fame tracks, right? It's a wash. But then let's say Velus Jones is good enough to be, a wide receiver too for the Chicago Bears. Then does that like propel that? I mean, we'd have to like cross the other bridge of like, okay, what did the Steelers do? But
you mentioned Velus Jones earlier and talking about like next season, and I was going to say he'll already be 26, but I'm not going to hold that against him.
I was going to say it's supposed to be 56. All right, so I only got one more for us. He was probably the MVP of the game for most people. I know we mentioned him once already. I do think he's a little bit more than the Ryan Nall and Dane Sanzenbacher types, but it's Jack Sanborn. Jack Sanborn is currently the fifth linebacker in the depth chart, and I do think he probably moved himself up to linebacker number 4. And he was another guy. I had 3 guys that were locks to make this team, and I think Sanborn's one of them, along with, like I said, Tajay Sharp and Dante Pettis. So I'll let you go first on this one.
All right. So, worst case scenario for Jack Sanborn. The best we ever see of him was the preseason game number 1 of his career in his hometown. He does kind of get that promotion up the ranks, makes the team, but just does nothing at all. His name is Jack, and This Is Us, there's a Jack, but I don't want to draw any comparisons there because that gets dark as well. But just that he turns into that guy that you just remember the one game, but it was a meaningless game when it all comes down to it. So he makes the roster, but really shouldn't have. And a year from now, we barely remember his name as a trivia question in something about Eberflus's first game coaching or something like that. Who had the most tackles in Eberflus's first preseason game? I don't know.
I was going to say you're veering to the This Is Us thing. I was just going to say, he just needs to stay away for some fires.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to say. Not only is it a spoiler alert, but it's dark.
I mean, it's dark. Not that much of a spoiler.
So I go best case now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so best case scenario, he's a solid backup, but I can more see him on special teams. He was down there on the punt that got called back on a block in the back, but he just made a great open field tackle. And those are the type of plays that a guy who is the 50th guy on the roster can make that can have a real impact on an actual regular season game. So to me, best case scenario, he's a rotational backup, but also a solid contributor on special teams, which, let's be honest, can sometimes be forgotten, but can be a huge part of changing the field position in a game, or just on a big play. You cause a turnover that could be the difference between a win or a loss.
I like it. I'm going to go best case first on this one. I'm going to switch it up here. And my best case scenario is that Jack Sanborn pushes his way up the depth chart. Not only is helping on special teams, but actually wins the Sam linebacker position, which really isn't his position. He's actually, I think, more geared for the middle linebacker position, but he's going to win that starting Sam backer spot and be the Hunter Hillenmeyer of this defense, which, by the way, only sees about 20 to 30% of the snaps.
Rotating a nickel corner.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you're doing something in those snaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hillenmeyer was not necessarily a difference maker, but he was definitely a name, right? Like, I mean, people remember Urlacher and Briggs and Hillenmeyer kind of being like a great three linebacker trio. And at the same time still help out on special teams, because I mean, that's obviously, I think, where his career lies. He's a football player. He's not an elite talent. He's not anything like that. He's a football player, but I don't know. It's hard to say that he can't do things after watching how athletic he was.
You were scaring me for a second. I thought you were going to start talking about yellow jackets. You already brought up Hall of Fame for Brisker and Gordon. I was like, uh-oh, is Sanborn heading there too?
No, I didn't say he was going to be the next Urlacher. So
you gave us Hillenmeyer.
I gave us Hillenmeyer.
I think that's a very good
I think that's
way to frame it.
A fair
very
analysis.
Fair and, plausible, maybe a stretch, but it'd be awesome to see. All right. And this is going to close us out, I believe. So you really got to bring it here.
I know.
And there can be no fires, because I put that in injury category. That's why I didn't go there.
No fires.
All
right. So Jack Sanborn, which, by the way, he is a UDFA out of Wisconsin. He's going to take he's going to become really good friends with Justin Fields, who, as I said, takes that sad road from Chicago up to Wisconsin. And Sanborn tries to take that same path, but instead ends up with the Detroit Lions as their starting middle linebacker, and actually has a solid 10-year career where he, flirts with, a couple Pro Bowls here and there.
Oh, wow. See, I thought that's worst case, that same thing where it hurts as a Bears fan to see him have success. But I feel like if you go to the Lions, that's just bad enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's never going to amount to anything. They're still only going to win 3 games.
Okay. Okay. That's where I thought you were going.
Yeah. He gets to be the starter. But
okay. Yeah, that was a friendly worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think the Justin Fields one was the best one. Like, that should have been the one we ended with.
You're right. We're working on it. It's a new segment. We're gonna, and I didn't know you wanted us to go with the dramatic flair.
I didn't know
I gotta really work on it. For future. We'll roll this one out again, and I'll bring my inner "This Is Us" out.
I fully admit that I did not plan to go that route. Other than I did watch a couple of clips just to refresh my memory of how they did it.
That's right.
And I think that was enough for me to kind of
all right.
build.
Yeah, I'll go dust off the old This Is Us episodes and get inspired next time as well. So, but Rob, it's been a pleasure. Starting out as kind of the guest on the show here, but maybe a permanent fixture, which I'm happy to be a part of.
You're not the Jack Sanborn of the show.
Oh, wow. So this was my preseason game 1, made a few plays, hopefully.
No, you're beyond that. You've already made the starting lineup.
Well, by default. And I didn't know when our worst case scenarios were going to overlap because I thought like you were going to say he was going to replace Roquan Smith or something.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, more to come.
Yes.
I look forward to hopefully this is not a very high bar, but a watchable Bears season.
Yes. Yes. Oh, you know what? Next episode, we're going to do a worst case, best case scenario for the Halas Huddle podcast.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to tease that. We're
Okay.
going to throw that in there.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, this is it. This is the end. Good night. I am exhausted, so bear down, Chicago Bears fans, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed Justin. He is going to be replacing Jeremy going forward, and I think it'll be fun because we're actually in the same vicinity, and we can do a lot of fun things.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Go Bears.